Welcome to block 6, and you can see what we have here with this one. There's a lot of little pieces. It's not hard. It just takes a little bit longer. We do have, again, a lot of little pieces. So we're going to build this in segments, and then we'll put it together then into a quadrant and go forward from there. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first things we're going to do are these 4 center units that are like a square and a square. And so what I have done is I've drawn a diagonal line on all of my smaller pieces. And then we're going to line that up in the corner and go ahead and sew right on the line. And so when I match these up, I'm going to do red in one corner, and then on the opposite corner I'm going to do the medium blue, and then the other two, then we'll cut those and press those and then do the other 2 corners and they will get a white square. So make sure it's lined up exactly in the corner, and we're going to stitch right on that line. And I'm going to work on like 2 blocks at a time and get those 2 done and then do the other 2. So okay, and then the opposite is the blue. And then I'm going to trim off my excess, so leave a 1/4 inch seam there. And then add the blue to this one. Okay, and I'll trim these. And then I'll set those aside for pressing. And then we'll do the other 2 that are left. Okay, I'm going to go press those and then we'll see what we have. Okay, and now I have 4 pieces that look like this, and we're going to add the white to the other 2 sides. And so again, just line up the corners and stitch on that line. Sorry. Okay, we're going to line up the corner and stitch right on that line. Okay, I'll trim all these off, all the extra fabric, so I have a 1/4 inch seam. And then we'll press those, so I'll just make a pile for pressing, and I'm going to keep going with these. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and finish adding the white ones on the other parts and then press them open, and then we'll come back and see what we have. Okay, now we're going to take those 4 center pieces that we just created, and we're going to sew them together like a 4 patch. So I'm going to sew these 2 together, and then we'll join those. And again, just lining up your edges. And then I'll do this one. Okay, now with these, we have a lot of thickness in this seam because there's lots of things coming together there. So I'm going to press one to this side, and this one I'm going to press the seam to this side, and then they will nest together. Okay, and then we're just going to join those 2. Okay, and we'll take a look at that, and that looks good. We'll just give it a really good press here in a sec. And then now we're going to work on some of our other segments, and that would be the little flying geese. And we're going to do the 4 at a time method. And so I have my larger navy and 4 red squares, and I've drawn the diagonal line on those. And I'm just going to line these up so that my piece looks like this, where I have a continuous line, and I'm going to sew on each side of that line. Okay, and then we're going to cut this apart right on that drawn line. And then I'm going to go ahead and give those a press like back like that, and then we're going to add our other piece. Okay, so we've got those pressed, and we're just going to add our last 2 pieces on like this, get it lined up, and then we're going to stitch on both sides of that diagonal line again. Okay, and then we can cut those apart right on that line. And then we're going to press and trim. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, we're at the pressing station, and I'll show you how I press this one here. I have my 4 quadrants sewn together, and when I did that, I pressed to one side here, the opposite side on this row, and then that seam that joined those 2 together, I went ahead and pressed open because it was really thick there in the center. And so that's just going to lay a little bit flatter when we put our block together. So that's what our center looks like. And now let's work on some of these flying geese. And I'm going to go ahead and press that red side that we just added. We're going to press that back. And then we're going to trim these up, and we'll trim all 4 sides of these. So they are a little bit bigger, and then we'll trim them down. So we're not really wasting that much. We're just trimming a little bit off, but it definitely keeps every point and line where it's supposed to be. So I'm using a block lock. That's the size that my block needs to be. And so I'll just trim all 4 sides. And you can see what I've trimmed off there. And then there's the unit. So we're going to trim all of those. And then our last one. Oh, didn't come off this corner, so let me get that. Okay, so that's done. And then I'm going to bring back our board and we'll lay out the block so we can keep piecing it together. Okay, so let's see if you can see that. All right, so this is our centerpiece, and we have the reds going to the outer points there in the corners. And then we're going to go ahead and lay it so that our geese part is pointing into the center on all 4 sides. Okay, and then on each side of our flying geese, we're going to add a light blue square. And so I'm going to do these sides together, then add that on, and then do the top and bottom. And they're going to go kind of the same way. They get a light blue on each side, and then a navy on each end on that top and bottom row. So we'll go ahead and sew all that together and see what we got. Okay, so I'm just going to bring my units over. These are those side pieces. And I'm going to line that up. And okay, we'll do that on each one of those side pieces. And I'll just press that back out of the way for now and add a blue onto this end. Okay, and then we'll do that same thing to this one. So then these will be our side units, but I'm going to go ahead while we're here and just piece the top and bottom. And that gets a blue on each side of that flying geese. Okay, and then I'll just press that out of the way, and then we're going to add a navy square on that blue square. Okay, and this side. And one more. Whoops, it goes on this side. Okay, now we're going to add those side units onto our center. And you can use some pins here if you want to, just because there's lots of places to line up. But I'm just going to kind of hold mine in place. Okay, and we'll just take a look at that. Looks good. Now we're going to add the other side. Just making sure my red is facing the right direction. Okay, and let's see. Oh yeah, that looks good. I think I'm gonna go, there's a lot of bulk in the seams there. I'm gonna go press that open, and then I think that's gonna help everything lay just a little bit flatter. Okay, so I did press that open, so you can see this seam here is pressed open and the one on this side, and that is going to make it lay just a little bit nicer. So now I'm going to add the top and bottom pieces, and I am going to pin these because I want to make sure that these intersections line up. There's just a lot more places for it to get kind of wonky if you don't use a few pins here. It's up to you. And I'm kind of just making sure that I'm matching up that seam. And then the middle part will be fine. Okay. Okay, and I'm happy with how that one turned out, and just one more to add. Okay, and again, I'm going to put a few pins in. And just making sure those intersections kind of stay lined up there. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to give it a final press and we'll get the borders added. Okay, and that part of our block is complete. Okay, let's take a look at our blocks. We're getting ready to do our circle applique on this. So we're going to take a look at this one here so you can see the difference. This one again just has the white along the outside so that we can actually see the whole block within the border. And then the one that we're going to be doing our circle applique on is where the navy pieces inside the block blend into the border, so then it's going to just look like it's floating. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pin this on, and you've seen me do it before. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch it, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm just trimming off around the excess to get rid of that, and I'm just leaving a 1/4 inch away from that stitching line. And if you want to see the stitching around it in more detail, you can check back on the previous month's videos and I show that. So here I'm just going to pull up just the interfacing and make me a little slit or hole so I can turn it right sides out. Okay, and then I'm just going to go around and poke that seam out. Okay, and I will use the point turner. That one did a pretty good job, but I do want to put the point turner in there. And again, I'm going between the seam allowance and the fabric on the front of the block. I'm not going right next to the interfacing because it could just poke a hole in there, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, so that looks good. And then we'll flip it over. Oh, how fun. See how that just floats in there really neatly? All right, let's go ahead and give that a press. Okay, very nice. I'm going to go ahead and applique that onto our white background, and I'll meet you back here. Here are our completed blocks for this month. Thanks for joining me.